Staff writer for The New Yorker and the author of a new book, Dark Money, the hidden history of the billionaires behind the rise of the radical right. My old friend, thank you for joining us.
Great
Jane,
to be here.
So this book's got a lot of Coke in it, right?
It's not just Coke, but it's got a lot of Coke.
There's a lot of Coke in it. So just your argument in this history here is that they are at the center of a really powerful syndicate in some sense, right? I mean, I don't want to be too precise about the language, but this is a big...
What they've built, I mean, this is a history. It shows you that they've been building something for 40 years. It's not just suddenly now. For 40 years, they've been working on building a machine, a political machine, that is pushing particularly the Republican Party far to the right. And so it describes the backstory to this whole thing. Now they've got something that's akin to almost like their own sort of oligarchic party.
Well, that's the kind of question, that was the kind of 30,000-foot question I want to ask, which is this, given what has happened to the Republican Party and the institutional Republican Party and the establishment in this election cycle in particular, is it true now that the Koch network is as powerful or more powerful than the Republican Party itself?
Well, put it this way, they have on their payroll 3.5 times as many people as the Republican National Committee, and the budget that they've got planned for 2016 is twice what the Republican National Committee spent in the 2012 campaign. That's a lot. So it's a big operation. There's actually a new paper out that Theda Skocpol, who is a professor at Harvard, just put out last week, and it's called The Koch Effect. And what it describes is that they've created sort of something that's on the size of a national political party that acts as like a huge magnet because they've got so much money. It's a force field pulling the Republican Party to the right.
In the last, say, 25 years, is the degree of darkness, secretiveness of the money the Kochs and the other people you write about spend any different in terms of its secretiveness or in terms of its impact than what labor unions spend?
Labor spend less, and of course they're slightly different anyway. Labor unions represent many people. What interested me about this group is if you look at the Koch network in particular, it's about 400 to 450 people. So it's a tiny group. It's very intensely concentrated money, though. I added up at some point. It was hard to do. From what was known of the guest list, I tried to add how many billionaires were involved in just the first term of Obama's presidency, and I got to 19 billionaires whose net worth was $214 billion. So that's a lot of concentrated wealth in one very small group that's very well organized and coordinated. And
how would you compare them to people like George Soros and Tom Steyer, again, in terms of their amount of spending and the secretness of the spending?
Well, I mean, I write about both Soros and Steyer also. Steyer was the biggest campaign contributor in 2012 of disclosed money. And Soros has kind of backed off of campaign spending when he was spending.
I named them, but I'm just talking about liberal millionaires and billionaires. Are they spending less?
As a whole, I mean, Soros is spending less. The Democrats have their own sort of donor club. It's Democracy Alliance. And its budget, I think I read most recently for this campaign cycle, is $40 million. The budget for the Koch network is $889.
But a lot of that's not for politics. A lot of that's for other activities like helping people learn to read and
a little bit of it is for helping people to read. A lot of it, you know, you're talking about, you were asking what's changed in dark money.
Right.
What's changed is since 2010, something changed that people didn't really expect. Everybody said, oh, all these corporations are going to pour money into politics. They didn't. Corporations usually have stockholders. It's too dicey. You alienate people. What happened instead was super wealthy donors took the spot of becoming the power in the party.
The subtitle of the book talks about the rise of the radical right. Radical right, I'm not being in any way critiquing the subtitle. Subtitles are what they are.
Go ahead, be my friend.
No, subtitles are what they are, but the radical right is kind of a blanket term, right? A lot of people think about the cultural right, the religious right, the whole social cultural constellation, as well as the economic part of that constellation. It's interesting to me that the Kochs have as much power as they have, and you say they're a magnet that are pulling the party to the right, but they are not interested at all in those issues, which constitute a lot of what the radical right is in people's minds who use phrases like radical right.
Some people. I mean, there's a reason I use the word radical. It is a word that could be taken the wrong way, but it's how they describe themselves. Right. There's a book called Radicals for Capitalism that is written by a libertarian about the libertarian movement, and there's a description of Charles Koch early on in his life, as soon as he got into politics. I said 40 years ago, he was saying he wanted to pull the government out by its root. It's radical in that it's talking about something really dramatic.
All right, Jay Mayer, I could talk to you all day. The book is Dark Money, The Hidden History of the Billionaires Behind the Rise of the Radical Right. Everyone should buy it, read it, absorb it, and maybe even